Yeah.
Welcome back to Sparking the Fuse. Today I'm joined by Ryan Chesterfield, founder of AutoFC and AutoFX. Ryan's helping companies modernize their logistics and warehouse operations through smart automation and robotics, turning complex systems into real performance gains. Let's get into how he's driving innovation and what's holding many businesses back from making automation actually work. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah. I want to start with what problem you were most driven to solve when you started both of these companies, AutoFC and AutoFX.
Improve outcomes of automated projects, and in particular, automated warehouse projects. I spent my career selling automated technologies, all different types, all the types, if you will. I have a little bit of experience with them all. And so I got to see the cradle to grave life cycle of when the customer first told you what they wanted, and then you figure out what it is they need. And sometimes customers going to tell you they want the Ferrari, and then really what they need is a Honda. So that's kind of your job, and to figure this out. And then saw basically let's say the grave where they put it in and their expectations are missed by X amount. And maybe a way to quantify it would be, I always saw customers give their system a best a C+. And I'm like, why is it not an A? Why don't I see any customers talk about their system like it's a child they would have again? And that's why I started AutoFC, which stands for Automated Fulfillment Consulting, was to just help them understand the implications of how this technology is going to affect their business. And then I started AutoFX in sort of consulting my way into identifying a problem that was occurring for the customer, or really even a complementary technology to what we were talking about at AutoFC, which was mainly how can robots or automation help you move stuff through your facility. And then AutoFX is how can your drivers have an aid to help the forklifts in the facility. It's essentially adding technology to the forklifts to give the drivers and management more information to make better decisions, capture safety events, and so on and so forth. So essentially improving outcomes. Kind of circling back to the first thing I said, there's lackluster results out there, and it's because this is the first time a lot of companies are doing this. The amount of companies, robotics companies at the trade shows is 5x what it was 3 years ago. So there's just so many shiny objects out there, and the customer is confused and doesn't know which one to pick. And so I'm going to help them figure that out.
Yeah, thanks for summing it up like that. I can relate on the sales side of things. I've sold software in the past, and you kind of have your MVP, right? Where what we're starting with, and a customer's like, well, I want it to do this and this and this and this, and you do have that pressure to be like, well, yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there. But where you actually deliver something that is actually tangible and moving, I could see for sure where having something lackluster would be pretty disappointing. So in this new company that you started, part of it is creating the right expectations for what this system can actually do for them, and then delivering up to that standard. Was that a good way to say it?
It is. And we're going through this right now as we're trying to propose this in sort of a formal fashion, right? And that includes telling the customer what they're going to get. And so this process has been thus far doing a proof of concept, so we can deploy the technology and then show the customer via graphs, charts, cool data that we can get all this information that we're going to organize for them. So to the point of your MVP, now how we make that data useful is our secret sauce. Getting the data from the sensor is what sensor does, but making it useful to the customer is where we bring in, understanding of how they operate to know what operational health metrics they're going to care about. And so, um, I think we are walking the line of setting reasonable expectations of what the software is going to do since we haven't put it in quite yet. We can't say for sure, quantify gains, which we would love to do and hopefully plan to do in the future. But, um, I think I could sum it up as that we're framing it as an aid to the driver. One beautiful thing about this solution that automation does not get to avoid is that if my system doesn't work, the driver just keeps doing what they're doing. I'm going to just give them more information than they have today. They can still operate without this information. They just can't operate as efficiency. They don't know the shortest path to go. They don't know about traffic in aisle B17, um, or about that pedestrian in their blind spot. So if something goes wrong, there's a fallback. And this is where there were only C plus grades is where the customer needed flexibility and they didn't plan for that. And they didn't plan for that because the vendor didn't ask the right questions and the customer didn't really realize how bolting all this conveyor to the ground was going to change their operation. And then when they run the sale on the diapers and they need 13 times the volume and now it clogs the whole thing, they didn't. So, um, that's a lot in answering your question there, but this world is changing essentially. The warehouse of yesterday is not the warehouse of tomorrow. This labor pool is shrinking. Boomers are retiring. Gen Z does not really want to work in a warehouse. So companies are going to have to do something to enable their operators. I think in my mind, gamification, giving them cool gizmos to go work there versus they can get paid the same amount next door to not work with cool gizmos. Like, what are you going to go? You're going to go where you have good tools. So
Yeah, I think
aside
so.
from productivity, yeah, go ahead.
It seems like specialization. It creates more specialization for them to be able to operate at a higher level like that too, right? Where
Totally,
yeah.
totally.
So when you meet with someone the first time, they're like, "Wait, so I can't just set up a bed in my office and go to sleep while your while your system does everything?" So we're talking like enhancing the employees that are with the business versus like fully replace them, which is a great thing, I think, for sure. Like, how can we have employees operating at the highest level possible with the use of technology?
Exactly. I mean, essentially, like a way that is easier to quantify to the operations managers is bringing the utilization of that operator up. If you're paying them to drive them a forklift, and this software can help them carry something more often than they do now, it's essentially what they're employed and why you bought that truck. And so, in man hours, that's like easy to relatively easy to quantify, but it moves the needle essentially for showing them the value. And I think that's what is difficult now. I mean, warehouses are run almost like a football game. Like a group of people are given a set of instructions for the next hour or so, and they're set free. If they have problems, they might radio in, but it can be really difficult to organize work or know what's going to happen in the following hour. And I think that, again, these warehouses of tomorrow, all this technology, this is low hanging fruit. Like this is Excel level type of math that we can take advantage of.
No, I love that. And yeah, you kind of do see, I mean, I worked in the GPS space for a while and they were working on utilization and load counts and stuff like that over obviously quite a bit of distance. When I think of the warehouse, I'm like, this is like a microcosm of it. And it's very, what's it called? It's very easy to see the stats on a warehouse versus like a construction site, for example, or multiple construction sites. It's easier to see in a warehouse the productivity that happened or didn't happen, right? If a guy's should be taking more load and he doesn't, or he could make this trip less often than he does, then that's all efficiency. It's getting more efficient. That's cool. I'm curious, like when a new client reaches out or you reach out to them, like what situation are they typically in? Are they overwhelmed? Are they behind? Are they trying to catch up with automation trends? Like what would you say?
I mean, it certainly depends on like which side of the business, but if we take auto FX, it would be safety situations. I mean, essentially injuries over a fatality a week in the United States from forklifts and industry. It's like 86 a year.
Oh my god.
So these are obviously high impact events. And sometimes I think at least my observation in my customers thus far, which we've really just started, is that, the board or the CEO says we got to do something. So it starts with like a need to make a change. And if it's not like we need to have more information on these events, what happened, where were they, what are the other times, what are the near misses? This is a term that I is getting attention is how many near misses do I have? Because right, these are the close calls, if you will. And at the moment, without any technology, there's almost no way to track this in a digital other than what is reported by people. And they can just tell by the paint missing on the side of the vehicle that everything is not reported. So um, I think it's information that they don't have yesterday, and it's on the topic of safety, which is convenient for me running on both sides of the fence, moves the needle more than automation, right? The automation has to be ROI, is usually ROI driven. That can also come in with safety. Safety has very high ROI because it costs a lot to have
When someone's down.
focus on safety,
Yeah. Yeah.
way more than it does if stuff is late on a truck, for example. So you could say safety solutions move the needle more than automated solution, or just they have, sort of a stronger flavor. And automated solutions, they need to have a project going. So they either need to be a new building, or maybe they're redoing their supply chain. They got acquired by a company. They're about to acquire a company. Basically, a need for massive change. Doing open heart surgery in a building is almost never happens. I mean, anyone like any warehouse operator, like looking at this should consider that too. Like, what's going to actually make the operation undergo drastic change? And unless you have that, it's unlikely you will.
Oh, I feel like I just totally learned something new there. I wouldn't have guessed that that would be the primary driver, that safety would be it. It makes sense after you explain it, but like being like just at face value, it doesn't seem like super apparent to me until you start talking about it. Do you know, like when you say near misses, like what would that be? Is it typically like they overload one and it like falls forward, or they're
Hmm.
not engaging properly and it's falling on, like materials falling on a person? Like what are typical near misses?
Yeah, it could be all the above. Could be we want to record every time a pedestrian was in 3 feet of this, because no one's supposed to be within
How
15
close it
feet.
came? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, same goes with another vehicle. Or right, if we have the location of all the vehicles, like we can we're trying to decide what to call it, but collision prediction, essentially. Like,
Mm,
we know two vehicles are on the same trajectory, so we can warn a driver that this is about to happen.
yeah.
There's a
Okay.
couple examples. Other things could be, there's other bells and whistles, like a fork camera,
Right.
like a camera in the feed of the app. Like, the way the operator interacts with our solution is via like a tablet. Could be a mobile device, but we think a tablet's just easier to use, more screen essentially. So having a camera feed on there, right, enables them at 33 feet in the air when they're using a reach truck and this thing is like extending out. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but talk about threading the needle. These
Yeah.
guys have to make a 3-point shot every time they do this. And it's with something that weighs maybe 2,000 pounds.
Yeah. No, I could totally see that. I'm curious, like when you're talking about this, my mind goes back to my insurance days, where it's like I have seen like GPS for sure providers go into insurance companies and really kind of start hitting hard there. I've also seen it in you see it in housing like residential insurance too, when they're using drones to look at roofs and say, "Hey, look, you're about 20 years in. We're going to take away this coverage unless you replace something." Do you see that at all in the warehouse space happening with this?
I do. It's funny. My COO just brought this up the other day, that like we should go find out who our customers using for insurance and talk to them and find out if we can lower insurance rates due to safety solution in place. There's
That's
things.
exactly what they do.
Yeah, right. There's scenarios like this that occur today, which I think is exactly what he's pointing at. So, the short answer is yes. We just started talking about this, um, and why wouldn't we? Right? That only bolsters the ROI, which it can be difficult to quantify at times. Right? It can be difficult to get a customer to admit how many dollars in injuries, or get them to tell you at least how many dollars in injuries they're actually having. But something like that's a little more tangible.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you, like, even just any kind of like serious injury, let alone a fatality, would be a major boost on someone's rates for workers' compensation is going to get way jacked up, as well as some of the other insurances with liabilities and everything like that. It'd be interesting to explore for sure.
Yeah, interesting. I'll have to look into that more.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the, like, I guess, industry trends and challenges that you're seeing. So I saw like you had kind of written on a post online about mentioning this like $150 million plus project kind of like falling short. Can you kind of give like a little bit more insight on that? Why you think maybe so many companies are missing the mark after such a heavy investment like that?
Yeah, I think, well, one comes down to expertise on the customer side. I mean, essentially, this is why I saw the business. I started this business is I just saw customers years ago didn't even have this available to them. Like they could pay consultants and whatnot. Now you're seeing them hire them internally, right? Amazon's been hiring industrial engineers since their, inception into e-commerce. So this was not the case for 99% of the market. You're going to have outliers like Walmart and people that have been doing this warehouse automation game for a long time, but the vast majority of folks did not have the skill set. So they were, civilians in a court against lawyers, essentially. Um, you're talking about spending $100 million. You're defining what this mousetrap's going to do, and if it's motors and drives, it's going to work, more or less the same way every time. And all these, and so in order to do that at that scale, you're gonna be making a lot of assumptions, and if some of those assumptions change, it's going to affect the way that system works. Also, a tough thing with these systems is the timeline. They take a year to figure out what customer needs, 6 months to a year. And sometimes they can take 6 months to buy it, but let's just forget about that. It takes a year for it to show up at the scale of $100 million worth of equipment. It takes a year for that software and all that steel to be bent. And then it takes them about another year before they know how to really drive that car very well. Shaking out the bugs. Some of that's going to be the vendor's fault. Some of that's going to be the customer's fault. So I think the best thing you can do is just arm yourself with smart people. If you haven't done one of these big projects before at any scale, if it's $100 million versus $2 million, get expertise on your team that have implemented technology and all the different bits, right? The software, there's certainly a software component to this that's really important. And I think that's the best that you can do. Understand that your first one is going to be your first one. Your second one's probably where you're really going to thrive. Don't expect to knock it out of the park. And what that means is also leave yourself flexibility. This is what I saw being the vendor and now being on the other side. The vendor is going to tend to push for more rather than less. That's going to make the dollar amount go up more on their quota. That may not always enable the most flexibility for the customer. So that's where you need that expertise on your end to say, you know what? No, we're going to hand stack that because that changes all the time. Um, and that's just random example, but
Yeah.
hopefully wrap that up.
When you kind of look at the marketplace, what are some of those like biggest misconceptions you see about robotics or warehouse automation right now?
I think that like you as a user are in position to use any of it. Like, for example, if you don't have systems of record, if you don't have software already, that controls and monitors and maintains the movement of all of the stuff in your warehouse, then you don't even have the digital footprint any of the robots are going to need to know where to go or what to do. You're going to be putting gravel in a wood chipper. Um,
I like
and
that analogy.
so there's this, maybe digital readiness is a term I've used before, that you need to be in position there. And a lot of customers are not there, right? If you don't have barcodes on everything and, scan in and scan out, if you're using paper at all, um, you basically need to bring your systems up, systems of record, digitize them before you're ready for robots.
And is that something that you help to do in your consulting side of thing, or you just kind of point it out and say, hey, this is definitely something you're going to have to focus on first?
Yeah, I think the latter, but I think it also falls into the initial category as well. Like help them in that, hey, this is a low hanging fruit to you. There's, a million companies that can do this for you. Here's a couple. But
And
you
life
got to
gets a
do
lot
this
better once you start implementing that, right?
for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really my intention, is that to point them in a direction. Certainly, like, uh, we'll be involved with the customer as much as they need, but I'm not out here trying to be oversell that, like, as a consultant, we're gonna dig into the weeds and like come up with these grand schemes. Like, no, we're gonna just point out your low-hanging fruit and give you the right order of operations that's gonna make sense. So you get ROI, you spend your money wisely, essentially.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's thinking like a business owner, certainly. When you look at AI, machine learning, and how it's changing what's possible, like what are the biggest mistakes you think people are making right now and trying to implement maybe too quickly? So too quickly being like
Yeah.
they're spending a whole bunch of money and then it's like, where do we spend this money? Oh, here, here, and here. And it's like, whoa, you actually moved too quick on that stuff.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, I would encapsulate it in digital readiness, which maybe needs to take on a broader meaning. At one, how are you going to get the data? Is it sensors? Are you scanning? Like, you're going to be making a change to somehow feed the beast with all this data. How is that? And is it robust? And then what systems are you feeding it to? I mean, your own systems, are you buying them? And how are you going to use it to make operational decisions? I think, at least as I observe the trade shows, and even I talk a lot about data. I mentioned digital readiness. That's all about having your data straight. It's easy to get sold on dashboards, and we're all selling the use of data, but dashboards are not only useful unless you can truly make an operational decision, an alternative decision. You know what to do.
Thank you. Yes, I
And I'll give you an
agree.
example of like what we're applying AI and machine learning. And when it comes to path planning and offering the driver not only turn by turn directions, but a suggested route. They don't have to take that route, but it's, maybe just the shortest path. Or maybe there's congestion. There's two forklift drivers cleaning up a spill on the shortest route. And so it's going to guide them around, just like Google Maps does today. Through AI and machine learning, that basically will improve over time, and we can at least offer them the decision that needs to be made instead of just saying, hey, there's a clog here, let's offer them an alternative route.
Mhm. So just to go back a little bit high level, when we're talking Auto FC, this is the consulting arm. This is where you're saying, hey, here's your low hanging fruit. Here's your fastest paths to ROI. And if it makes sense in certain cases, you may talk to them about Auto FX, where you can actually build out some of the solutions for them to do those. Is that, do I have it right? Or is there
Y-
something I'm missing?
yeah, you do. I would add on that, like Auto FC, we're going to be talking about hardware and software that is everything but the forklifts. So it's sort of two different topics. One we make in house, one we don't. I mean, I think if there's I think that's how, in this case, I avoid necessarily a conflict of interest because it's really just turnkey, but I don't intend to like make anything in house that Auto FC advises on, because we're helping them figure out that recipe. If the forklifts are part of the recipe, I'm sure that option will be presented to them. That'll be like their choice, and bringing them the full breadth of solutions that are going to give them all.
Right. Okay. No, thanks for clarifying that. So talking about like Auto FC, for example, for you, what what represents kind of, I guess, the hardest part of scaling that business right now? Is it finding the right clients, managing like delivery, building awareness in a crowded space? Would you consider it crowded?
It's not crowded in the sense that, in referring to the consulting side, there's not many consultants that sort of specialize in
Specialized.
this narrow niche relatively. The vendors will make the case that you don't need this, that they'll do it for you. So
We
there's
got you.
navigating that. The customer can go right to the vendor and get lots of great help. I would just lobby. It's just not always going to be uh, everything that they need. Um,
Or in your
and
best
we kind of
interest,
talked about
right?
the implications if you don't get a good one. I mean, even if you got 26-year-old Ryan, you versus 36-year-old Ryan, like you don't get to choose. Like you get stuck with whatever brains are assigned at that vendor, and all of your investment are relying on those. Yeah, so it's been difficult getting the customer because all of this is a lot of these are new, right? Most customers have not done their first warehouse automation project, so they haven't been burned yet. So that has been my hill to climb is customers have to have a level of awareness and they have to have a project to work. With tariffs lingering past the election, there's been several theories circulated amongst us vendors, let's say, selling to the customers, and it's been a tough year. What's been convenient and interesting is that the messaging of auto FX, of safety, and an actual solution has been much stronger with the customers. I'm, it's infinite how much better luck I've had with that messaging so far.
So it's like selling automation still under the house of safety.
Yes, and I think it helps that I'm able to point right to the problem that I'm talking about and say, here's how we're solving it. Whereas the consulting side is a bit of a broader picture you need to enjoy the smell of that's difficult to see in a paragraph or in a LinkedIn message, right? It's a more of a macro vision they need to have. And so again, I think it's just it's easier to understand the value proposition of
Hmm.
the forklift safety product versus a will help you with your next technology product.
So to be clear on this, when you say safety, we're talking about Auto FX
X.
when we're talking forklifts and stuff. Selling through that is easier to say, hey, this is a safety play.
100%. I mean, I basically say I'm building a forklift safety tool, and people are like, say no more.
Yeah, take my money, Ryan.
Take my money. Um, and then like in at least one of our opportunities, it's event driven. Like they said, you gotta do something about
Yeah,
these issues.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Oh, very cool. I add another question here, like when it comes to growing your business, then so it sounds like right now the hot hand is Auto FX with being able to talk about safety. Like that's an easier push right now than the broader scope of consulting when you
it
guys have
is
because they're not thinking right now maybe, oh, we have this huge project because people might be sitting on the fence for things like what are tariffs looking like or going to look like. We don't know the landscape. And so maybe there's been some reluctance that you're seeing in people to start these projects.
100%. Yeah, and some of it's like Mac global economic conditions, like basically capital expenditure across the board has been kind of boring in the last 2 years. But I think it's also creating a bubble. I mean, like I mentioned, this problem is getting worse, not going away. Getting worse in the sense that customer demand is increasing. We want 2-day delivery. We want 1-day delivery. Brick and mortar stores are closing. This
Mhm.
means it takes way more square footage to send to a consumer than it does to a business for a warehouse. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the ratio is. It'd be interesting to do the math. It'd be like 5x.
Mhm.
So, um, It requires more warehouses, essentially. As we shift from B2B to B2C, warehousing expands, and they have to be closer to the customer. So, the fact that we haven't seen much money being spent, I think there's a bubble.
Yeah.
There's
No,
a
I
bubble
see that
coming.
t I see that too, and, to your point about, some of the behemoths out there, like, an Amazon or a Walmart and their operations, it's like they build their own tech, they R&D their own stuff, and then they keep it in-house to make themselves a bigger and better brand, and then it's kinda left to everyone else to try and catch up to that standard that they're setting, right? Where it's like same day delivery, next day delivery, like,
100%.
and then
And
just like if you're the little guy, what do you do?
y- it, it's difficult. And I've seen the big guys put in $10 million and throw it away.
Well, just burn it. Yeah.
30, 40, $50 million. Throw it
That's
away.
like that's like the R&D lifestyle, right? Research and development. Oh shoot, we just blew 50 mil.
It's remarkable what kind of situations will go down when, they may do a deal. Like I said, the timeline, right? So within 3 years, a business could get sold or bought that would totally kaputs the project,
Mhm. Yeah, no, good point. It could be very fast moving like that.
which is
Um,
also the good part about AutoFX because not everybody needs warehouse robots, but everybody has forklifts.
yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. Hmm. When for you, like, how do you balance between being like the technical expert with having to drive sales and business development as well?
At the moment, we're focusing on building the product. So I d- can spend, I've been, what's a good way to phrase this? I can just utilize my network to get our current pipeline. Like I haven't had a large need to expand the pipeline yet because we're building the product. So we can
Mhm.
get our first couple deals, get an MVP, case study or two. And certainly like I could do some of this stuff in parallel. Part of this is like a strategy, you could say. So eventually there will be a need to expand those capabilities. I mean, thus far I've tried everything. Man, I've tried um hiring a firm to teach me how to do it and signed up for all these list generators and email things and all this to do it myself. Then I hired someone to do it for me. Then I've looked at AI platforms that do it for you. There's ones that you can pay someone to run for you. um,
A little
right?
bit of everything, and
A little bit
what's
of
been your
yeah.
feedback on that?
I mean, I've dabbled with them all. It's hard to sift through the noise. I mean, honestly, I feel like my customer what feels when I say that situation of all those shiny objects is hard to know which one to pick. They vary drastically in costing and amount of time and amount of piloting required, let's say. I'm trying to find that sweet mix.
Yeah. Of those that you've tried, which one has shown the most promise to you?
Not enough data yet because I've tried basically human resources thus far. I haven't really tried any of the tools. Um,
You're saying like an outside sales rep to just go out and beat the bushes, see who's interested in that kind of stuff?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like do LinkedIn campaigns, email campaigns, all that,
Mhm. Mhm.
which is what like these AI tools are kind of doing now. You have to like configure them, which like Mike, I don't even want to do that. No,
Mhm.
I want someone to tell me what I want someone to configure that for me after I tell them what
Yeah.
I do.
When you when you say you're developing products and stuff like that, right now, that's the big focus. When you look 12 months ahead, like, I guess what's ideal scenario looking like? Is that like, you're fully launched in the market? Is that you've got X amount of case studies under your belt? What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think the like intention is to launch the market early next year, and by the end of the year, have our first couple to several customers buying their second system. I mean, in the way at least selling robots, I think maybe even selling anything, the first one's easy, it's the second one that's hard. So if you can sell a second one, you know you have something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when you say the first system, what does that entail exactly, would you say?
Well, in the case of AutoFX, it'd be like our first, fleet of forklifts armed with our technology.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And let me see, like what kind of partnerships or technology shifts do you think will define the next chapter of automation?
Well, I don't know how deep I referenced it earlier, but this will provide a digital footprint of what's happening with the automated vehicles, which will allow the manual vehicles, which will allow a handoff to automated vehicles even simpler. So I see it complementing automated technologies by basically enabling them to work together. Because essentially the only way you could do that before is if you have like a radio and someone's watching, hey, dropped it off. Now you can go get it. Right now we're going to get that fed right to the driver, complementing it. In the term of AI and machine learning and IoT, we're providing, you know, as real time as it gets, info, what's going on with that forklift. And for a warehouse, as I mentioned, everybody has forklifts. Everything that goes in and out of that warehouse is touched by a forklift a couple times.
Mhm.
So it's feeding the data machine so the operator can make better decisions. And I think that's part of the journey we'll have to go, and how our product will improve is how do we crunch this data to make it more useful to the customer. But being a part of just the data systems overall, the customer has other data systems, they will get maybe data systems they have now. Um, and it's combining all of those to give them the most information to make the best decisions they can.
Yeah. No, that's like you've got my head swirling with a lot of stuff that I've dealt with in the past. It's like there's weird parallels to the fragmented GPS market as that's been with logistics. And when I sold that software, I could see a whole lot of parallels here. It's very interesting.
Telematics for trucks, is that what
Yeah.
that was? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's very
telematics
similar.
for
It's
trucks,
very
but not
similar.
trucks. Like there's also construction, right? Like where they have load counts and such with the heavy equipment.
I see.
They get generators stolen. So you do have, where you're saying the dealers where, hey, we made this equipment, we can help track it, but they're like, well, how about these guys? They use like Komatsu and John Deere and Caterpillar, and these
We
systems
have
don't
that.
talk to each other. Like, right? So your solution I like because that's kind of like what I had too was where it's like, no, we got to see the full picture. And a dashboard from one or the other doesn't work. We need something that actually has everything in and makes this like something that we can actually make a decision on because we see multiple pieces that are not working efficiently and being utilized fully. So that's where I'm kind of thinking about stuff. We could talk more after too. If you could remove like one bottleneck that would double your impact tomorrow, what would it be? What would you say?
That's tough. Determining the right hardware stack on there to make it cost effective. We could rig this thing up like a Kiss concert and get all kinds of data, but it may
Let's
not
go.
be cost effective. So I think finding the sweet spot of what data is most useful, again, brings ROI. And our customers are kind of directing us. They've also never had this sort of information before. So one, they don't know. And if they say it's going to be great, they don't know. And if they say it's not going to be great, they don't know because they've never had it before. So I think to have a clear picture, we'll have to try first. But it would be visibility on the right amount of tech to put on there.
It's yeah, you get a whole lot of that. This would be nice to have. We would love this. We would love this. We would love this. And it's like, but do you need that to move the needle on actually getting that return on your investment or getting more productivity? Does it get more dollars through the door? Hmm.
Exactly.
I like that. Ryan, this has been a fascinating conversation with you. I appreciate you coming on and talking about where you're going. I love that you're on the forefront of an industry that's really niche too, and appreciate like the insights that you've brought. If people want to reach out to you, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
www.auto-fc.com or auto-fx.ai.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Chris.